Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk. We got a lot to talk about today, but I always like to start with, kind of going back to the beginning a little bit. What was the catalyst? What got you into ultimately the construction world? And yeah, we'll go from there.
Well, initially it was a series of bad life choices that got me into the business, but I learned pretty early on that picking up shingles wasn't the funnest job in the construction industry, and so moved up to laying shingles and found out, after a couple of years of doing that, that's pretty hard on your body. So looked at siding and got into the siding and James Hardie siding and as a subcontractor, but then realized, that the folks that we were working for, we thought that, we could probably do what they were doing. So we got incorporated and started our siding business.
So you started doing so. Are you working mostly for homeowners, or are you acting as a subcontractor now? How is your business set up?
Yeah, we're pretty much all remodeling. We do a couple new construction projects each year, but that's usually for past customers that are generaling their own projects. But tearing off and putting siding and windows back in existing homes, that's our specialty.
Okay. And are you focused mostly on James Hardie siding, or are you doing other siding as well? Okay.
Yep. James Hardie is probably 95% of what we do.
Okay. Why James Hardie? Why'd you end up working with them mostly?
Well, initially it was something different. So this is, go back to the year 2000, it was all vinyl siding and all vinyl windows. So it was really hard to differentiate yourself. And we had another contractor friend who wanted us to try this James Hardie siding, and a few saw blades and later, and some hard knocks getting the installation of the product down. We realized, this is where the future of siding is going to be, and so initially we did it to kind of be different, but then, as we got into it, we realized that this is the best siding for Minnesota homes, and really holds up to our extreme climate from summer to winter here.
What's the climate like there? What's the extremes?
So, a week and a half ago, we got a snowstorm, and, it's going to be 80 today, and so,
sounds 40, similar to Ottawa.
Yeah. 40 below in the winter to, 95 and humid in the summer. So, that constant expansion and contraction of those materials, James Hardie doesn't do that. And, people in other markets don't really understand the woodpecker thing, but woodpeckers are a big deal here. They just go after anything wood based, and so we've actually got a woodpecker mascot that we put at some of our sales events, that we put one of our kids in, and they pick it outside our home show booth. So it's kind of a fun deal, but Hardie holds up really well here in Minnesota.
That's great. So in terms of your business, then how are you set up? Like, are you all your workers, installers in-house? Are you subbing that out? How many projects are you doing? Because I know you have quite a successful company and you've got a good system going there. So I'm curious to know kind of the intricacies of how you set that up, and maybe some other people that are listening can learn from that.
Yeah. So we initially, when we first started, we did went and installed all day. My business partner and I and another guy installed all night, and then we found a truck stop to take a shower and change into our sales gear and did sales appointments at night. And that just wasn't sustainable for long term. As we got families and that kind of thing, that just didn't work. When we were young, and it got us over that hump. But so we have subcontractors, and these subcontractors are guys that we've worked for years and years. I've got one crew that's been with us 20 years, and the majority of them over 10 years. So, they're as close to employees as the insurance companies and the government will let us get. So, when they get to a certain percentage of work, you say, all right, guys, we've got another contractor a couple contractors that we work with, where they'll go do some work for them, and vice versa, just to kind of keep under that threshold. So we're staying consistent with those lines between subs and employees. We do have an in-house service team. They'll do some smaller installs, some, single entry doors, some, 3-4 windows. They service all of our warranty work. And then we have, dedicated project managers to each trade. So we have 2 siding project managers that all they do is work with the siding crews. If there's a roofing project tied to that, they'll do that because those are fairly simple. If it's a roof only, we have a roofing project manager that does those projects. And then windows, the same deal. We have a guy that's dedicated to windows and managing those projects. And they work in concert with each other. If it's, windows and siding, they work together on the timing and how things are gonna work with the installs to have the least impact on the homeowner. But what we found is that windows and siding was just too much. There's too many intricacies with the measure on a window project and casing, and I mean, just all the different pieces. It got to be a little too much. And so it does create a little confusion with the homeowners if we don't lay it out properly, is like who their main guy is. But it works for a better overall project if those trades are segmented there.
So yeah, so your PM, so the homeowner might be dealing with 3 different PMs on their one project.
Yeah, usually 2, because if it's a siding, roofing, and windows, the siding guy will handle the roofing portion of it. But
okay,
if it's a roof only, where it's just roofing, then there's one guy that handles those projects.
right.
But yeah, so it's really on us to communicate that and say, here's who your go-to guy is, and all things window related. We try to explain it that it works better overall for them, but it has been a pinch point a little bit. But overall,
Right.
it's created a lot less headaches.
So how do you manage the quality? So I know your subs now have been working with you for quite a few years, but at first, did you have to go through a few different subs before you found the guys? Like how did that, how do you manage the quality? How do you make sure that the customers kind of stay loyal to you as your company, as opposed to going with the subcontractor on the next project or referring to subcontractor? Because I see that being a possibility, right? Especially in your business.
Yeah, for sure. So the having been an installer and on the wall, we kind of look at subcontractors a little different than somebody who may not have installed. So we look at the fine details of the project, the window flashing, are they adhering to the James Hardie installation instructions to a T? So we'll go out, our general manager will go out and he'll look at a few projects, visit a project, if they're doing new construction, visit a project that they're actively working on and seeing, kind of how they work, how they keep their job site, new construction versus remodel. New construction, a lot of those job sites are just a mess. But it's a remodel, you're working in somebody's home, they want to have their kids be able to go outside and play after you guys leave for the day. And so it's just kind of a different level of cleanliness and building in that respect for the homeowner. So we've got Chris, our general manager, goes out and does that walkthrough and looks at a few of those jobs. And we just hope that that they will stay loyal. I mean, sometimes they come to us, and we've had a couple guys where a hailstorm is blown through and they've got 6 siding jobs in their neighborhood, that people are handing them, and we just say, all right, well, just come back when you can, just give us a heads up. And because you can't fault them for doing the same work for more money. I mean, that's
Exactly
what's best for their family. And so what we have, some of the loyalty we build in, is we've got a lot of projects, and we also are organized enough to have those guys go job to job to job to job. So while they might make $10 a square foot somewhere else, overall that might be only $300 per job. But if you have to sit in between your jobs, you've eaten up all that. So they're able to go pick up their equipment from one job and go to the next job the same day. So, and then they're not running. We've got dedicated project managers that they don't have to run and grab stuff. And our goal is to keep them on the job site as much as possible. which again,
Yeah,
as
I
a
could.
subcontractor, we love that, like you get the call instead of getting the call every morning, hey, can you go pick up this? Or, you're waiting on somebody to bring something out and it holds you up. So you just go get it yourself.
Yeah, and I think a lot of subcontractors appreciate working with, let's call it like a general contractor in this case, to some extent, right? So, as opposed to a homeowner, right? If they can deal with somebody that they know and they don't have to deal with all the conversations that come with dealing directly with the homeowner, it does save them quite a bit of time, so they can stay efficient as you're talking about this too.
Yeah, and they know they're gonna get paid. They're not gonna the homeowner's not gonna hold $5,000 because there's a screen missing, or some something like that. And we have a 5-day rule as far as when they submit their invoice. The day they submit their invoice, they're gonna get a check in 5 days. So our process is it goes to the project manager and then the salesman on that job. They have 5 days to review it. If they haven't done that review, then it comes to my desk. I look over the project, make sure everything's good, and we get a check out.
Yeah, and so they're happy for sure. So win-win
Yep.
for everybody.
Yep, definitely.
So what are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing today?
I think marketing is changing very rapidly, and so being able to identify some of those marketing opportunities, and there's just so much out there that I get inundated with calls and emails from marketing firms trying to you know to sell us whatever it is, and
I know. I
so
feel like
trying
those
to
emails and messages on LinkedIn have really picked up over the last couple of months.
yeah, it's unbelievable. Well, I think a lot of business, especially construction businesses in the wintertime, they kind of retool their marketing and sales stuff and kind of look at it. And so I think that the marketing companies have really gone to that. So, trying to identify that next thing, what is it? And, it can be really tough when you're not in it all day. And so one of the ways that, I've tried to stay current on that is I still, run sales appointments. So, getting in front of the customer, because I'm going to ask different questions than my sales guys are. They're not going to ask, where did you find us? How long did this process take? Because, they don't really care, I guess. They want to they want to get to the get to the sale and go. So, trying to find out how people are changing. And, I think we're seeing a lot more, maybe not 25, but 30 to 35-year-olds, doing fairly big projects, and they find companies a lot differently than, the 60 to 65 crowd. It's just a vastly different buy for them. So trying to stay current with whatever that next batch of buyers, where they're finding people.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what are you doing as a company then? So, because you have to market to those 30 to 35-year-olds, but you still have to market to the 60 to 65-year-olds. So how do you have your marketing separated right now?
So we do a few home shows. There's one, at the US Bank Stadium. There's the big Minneapolis Home and Garden Show. And then the state fair here is huge. It's just ridiculous. They run 2 million people through there, and we've got a pretty sizable booth. So that captures, just by the sheer numbers, that captures a large percentage of the people. And then just working really hard on our website. Because even the 66 to 65-year-olds are going to ask Google, and go to Google. So, the James Hardie website, just kind of making sure that wherever they look for James Hardie, that they see our saw blade logo, and really targeting organic search versus paid search. And some, even the social media things. Social media, it goes up, but as soon as somebody scrolls past it, it's kind of dead. The things you do on your website, those live forever, and Google can crawl those for forever. And so we've really focused on colors, like the James Hardie colors. We want to find that, we want to be a research tool for those homeowners. So a lot of home improvement companies, they want to catch people late in the funnel, like right when they're ready to buy. I want to be there every step of the way. And so if they can, initially start looking at colors. Maybe that's what's driving the project. They say, okay, we need siding. Well, immediately, the wife starts looking at colors. What color are we going to go? And so if we can be there early in that, that that dream design phase, we feel like even if it takes 3 years, they just keep coming, and then they see us at the state fair, and then they see us on the James Hardie website, just kind of building that rapport with the customer as a research tool.
Yeah, it's great because you're giving that information, but I think marketing these days really comes down to consistency, right? You can't expect to do one thing and then all of a sudden, sure, that you might hit a home run every once in a while or get the dream climb, but it does come down to just continuously putting stuff out there and getting your face out there, because there's so much coming at people these days, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not seen, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, then they might forget about you and just go with the most recent person, right? So I think it's one of the reasons why we do so much as well, is just to be there throughout it. Like I've had sales, like you said, you mentioned 3 years. I've had a 3-year sales process with people where they reach out, they're not quite ready, but they're doing the initial research, and then they reach out again 6 months later, and then maybe a year later. I'm dealing with one right now where he's like, all right, our property's about to sell. So we'll reach out once it's firmed up. Right? But he originally reached out 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I think people appreciate that leeway, because this isn't an impulse buy, right? These are big projects. Yeah. These are, usually forever homes, that they're going with James Hardie and, Marvin Windows. They're putting a big investment in this, and it's not, whereas somebody comes in and tries to, one call close them that night, they're not going to respond to that. So they appreciate that leeway and that respect to make that decision on their own terms. And I think, as things tighten up a little bit, the last couple of years, it's almost been whoever could get there first. It's been a little tougher, I think, for the better firms, just because you get so far out. You're like, oh, we're 8 months out. Well, I'm not waiting. And so as things tighten up again, as interest rates, go up a little bit, I think people are gonna look a little closer, and we feel like the harder they look, that we look better.
Yeah, what I find lately, at least, we're not doing dozens or hundreds of siding projects. I don't know how many projects you do in a year. We're doing larger projects, but I find that we're getting probably less leads now, but they're more quality leads. So I don't know if that's partly because of where the market's at, or just because of our consistency and how we've been marketing. But I definitely feel like when people are reaching out, they're more like, yeah, we've been doing some research. We're, ready to start the process. Now we're ready to start going with the design. Are you finding that as well, or is it different for you?
No, we are. I mean, we're, we've had a couple of really big projects come through, siding and windows, over $200,000 just for siding and windows in the last 2 weeks. And both those clients, one was from a home show that we just recently ran, where they're, it was, what is it, the 11th today? It was 6 weeks ago that, that we first met them. And the other one was off our website, which was, about 2 months, which is a pretty quick turnaround for, a project that size, to put all the design together and, all the windows. But I think, it's kind of a double-edged sword. They can do all this research online. They can find you, they can find their products, but you need to manage those customer expectations and experiences once the job starts, and the process, and spell out each stage, because, they can pull up the install manual and say, all right, well, why isn't this happening? And I think, although we'd like to have, day one, everybody shows up in a shiny white van with clean white t-shirts that say Craftsman's Choice on them. And, we need to manage that whole experience the whole way through. Like, these are still human beings. They still, might do dumb things. We might screw up. We're depending on suppliers that, may not have, they say they have the product, but they don't. And so trying to manage those bumps along the way that, look, you know, the best part about this project is when it's finished. You know,
Yeah.
we're going to be in your business for a while, and you know, there's going to be some things that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you do? Is that the conversation you have with clients to help manage those expectations? I feel some clients are more accepting of mistakes or when things happen, partly because they might be more experienced, whereas other clients are very much like they have this vision that everything's going to go perfectly smooth, but then you have to help manage that expectation once the inevitable whatever problem, mistakes happened or delay happens, whatever it may be. Like, how are you managing that, and do you train your team maybe to help manage that?
We do. So on the initial walkthrough with the project managers, they have that conversation that, look, you know, we'd love to have perfect projects, but I haven't had one yet. So hopefully you're the first one. But you know, there's probably going to be something, you know, that comes up, and you know, I think you find more out about a company how they handle those bumps. You know, do they, you know, look for a workaround, or do they pull everybody off and say, well, it's not our deal. You know, we'll come back when it's ready, which in my opinion is the worst thing you can do, because, you know, then you don't get back it when you like to, and the customer's sitting there in limbo. We just had one, this happened last week. Supplier told us all the windows were in. Job gets out there, the guys are going through them, and we're missing a window, you know, so they're trying to track it down. And you know, the client's like, how could this happen? How could this happen? How could they miss a window? I'm like, well, I don't know, you know, but it's not here. They're looking for it. You know, some people, I think in their jobs, like everything just happens as it should on a spreadsheet, one right after another, you know, in their line of work. And construction is just not like that. At least my part of construction isn't like that.
Well, yeah, as soon as the humans are involved, right, there's going to be mistakes, right? There's going to be error. Like, that's the whole point. Like, the whole automation point is where we can get rid of some of that human error. But with what we do, there's so many people involved, right from like creating the products for the windows, for example, in this case,
Right.
in order to get them to the manufacturer and then to the supplier and then the supplier to the site and everything, and all the things that could potentially happen along the way. Like, there's so many things that could go wrong. In my mind, I feel like it's a miracle that houses get built because of how many people are involved.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And you know, the supply chain issues are getting better, but I don't think they're to where we were, you know, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. I think we've all just adapted to figure out how to
For
work
sure.
with them now, right? So it's becoming the new norm.
Yeah, we have, but you know, we need to put that forward to our customers so that they understand that too, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I actually canceled the project with a guy because he was just so unreasonable. You know, I sent him his deposit back. The windows just, they weren't coming in, and they weren't coming in. And, you know, I said, I don't have anything to tell you. They're waiting on tempered glass. They don't know, their supplier can't tell them when it's coming in. So I can't tell you when it's coming in. And he just lost it. And I said, well, you know, I don't think this is going to be a good fit. If we're starting here, you know, this probably isn't a good fit. So I sent him his delivered his windows when they came in, and we moved on.
Right. So he paid for the windows, you gave him the windows, and then you left.
Yep.
So in that case, was he happy with it, or was he trying to get you to come back and do the work? I've found, because I've been in situations like that before, where like fairly recently, where I just said, look, I'm not interested in doing the project. And then the client's like, well, I really need you to help with this part of it or something. And I'm like, all right. But then I become more of a, we'll do it if this, and this happens sort of thing. Right.
Yeah. I didn't really give that opportunity. I mean, you know, it was to the point where he was yelling at the dumpster guy, and I'm like,
right,
it's the dumpster guy. This guy, you know, gets an address and he comes out here, you know, and the material supplier. And I'm like, you know, the guy's unloading forklift and, you know, unloading material. And I could just see early on, I mean, early on in our business, we would have had to do that because we needed that work. But,
Right.
it's nice to get to a point where you can, because I know that it wouldn't have gone well moving forward. And
Right.
so that, that wasn't on the table.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to be in that position. So that's what ultimately we want to get to, right? Where we get to choose our clients versus the clients choosing us for saying, and us feeling like we have to do the work because we need the work. I've
For
also
sure.
found that God kind of works in mysterious ways where when you say no to something, even though you think you might need it, then something else pops up and that's even
For sure.
better, right? So by
Yep.
saying no, or by saying yes to one thing, you're actually saying no to another thing. So you need to be very careful about what you say no and what you say yes to.
Yeah. And, I tell all of our guys, this is, like the three-legged stool. It's got to win for the company. It's got to win for the customer, and it's got to win for, the subs and the people that we work with. Otherwise, if something's out of whack there, then then we need to reevaluate and see where we need to fix stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are you most excited about for the future at this point? Is there anything, is Hardie coming out with anything new? Is there new tools on the rise? And there's a new software or something that's helping your business?
Yeah. So James Hardie has they do have a new product line that we don't have access to. It's a kind of an architectural panel where it's almost like a stucco look, kind of a sanded finish. So we're looking forward to kind of implementing that. We also just integrated a new sales presentation into our sales guys, and that's where I probably got 150 hours into building this stupid thing, but it's basically a digital resource for those guys. It's not a slideshow or you push pause and you go one to the next. It's a collection of resources that those guys can go to depending on where the conversation goes. So if somebody wants to focus on installation, there's installation pieces in there. If they want to look at before and after, there's before and afters. If they want to discuss the product, they want to discuss house wrap. I mean, all of that stuff is built into there, so for windows, entry doors, siding and roofing, there's all those pieces. There's brochures built into it so they can go into that. And so that's really exciting. We had a previous version. We did it in an Apple product, and it was okay, but it wasn't as interactive and was tough to update. This one is pretty amazing. So we're pretty excited about that.
Awesome. All right. So a little bit before I get you to share your info and how people can get a hold of you, I'm curious. I know that you're also a minister in your church. So you're running a business full time. You have a family that you need to take care of, and you're also doing ministry as well. Like, how do you navigate all this and work this all into the same 24 hours that we all have in our days?
Yeah. So in 2014, I bought my business partner out, and at that time we did a real deep dive into our process and looked at where gaps in staffing were, and we redid everything, and we implemented a CRM that's really been helpful in just finding out what we want to have happen on every project. So that putting that into play helped a lot. I hired a general manager who was a longtime employee, Chris, and he he filters a lot of the stuff from me that that I used to take care of, and so that freed up some time as well. And then when I was called as a bishop of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I met with the whole team. This is almost 5 years. We're coming up 5 years in May, and got the team together and said, "Hey guys, every other Wednesday I'm going to be up at the church. I need everybody to to kind of help me be able to do this work." And it's just worked out. The guys are great. They know that on that Wednesday, that unless something, got a house on fire, don't call me. And I also have some, a lot of support staff at the church as well. So it's been a really good experience and good for our team to empower, them to make decisions. A lot of the things that I would get calls for before, like you can make this decision. Like, I trust you. You
Right.
can do this. You know, I it's the reason that you're in that position is I trust you to make that decision. You're not going to make the right call every time, you know, but we'll deal with that. You just got to make a decision. You know, you don't need to call 3 or 4 people, make a decision and move on. So, you know, this call as bishop has allowed me to really grow. And there's a lot of similarities, you know, from the business world to, you know, leading a congregation, some of the inner workings of the administrative side. But it's really given me a good opportunity to work on how I interact with people. And, you know, there's some people that are struggling with some pretty heavy stuff. And it's really humbling to see the trust that they, you know, they place in the role of a bishop, not necessarily me, but the role of a bishop to help them with those heavy issues in their life. So it's been really, really rewarding and a great experience.
Do you feel like having this opportunity has made you a better leader in your business, better father, better husband, like basically taking on this big responsibility, improved other parts of your life as well?
Yeah, definitely. I know, you know, I had kind of a, you know, that series of bad life choices I referenced, you know, kind of a rocky start to adulthood. And it was all on me. I had great parents and I just went crazy for a few years. And so my path to where I'm at right now is a little bit different than other people that have been in this role. But I think I've got some empathy with some of the things that people are struggling with. You know, and as a leader in the business, it's also helped me, you know, when my guys feel more comfortable to come to me when, you know, when things aren't right in their life as well, and they can, you know,
Mm.
they feel comfortable in sharing some of those things because they know that I might have been on that path as well. But as far as the relationship with the family, I mean, it seems like the Lord's blessed me with extra time. I don't know how to explain it, but you know, I've got uh, 3 granddaughters now, you know, and being able to pick them up from school and take them to school and some of those kinds of things, you know, I never would have been able to do that 6, 7 years ago, you know, because the business was just all consuming. And, you know, you do sacrifice uh, some, some money by putting people in places to do that. But, you know, that's a trade-off that every business owner has to get to is, you know, what's more important, going to one of my kids' basketball games or selling another job? And for me, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ben, this has been fantastic. It's great to hear how successful you're becoming and how you're able to navigate the craziness of the world these days, and you're making the most of it, and you're blessed. So I love all that. How do people get a hold of you if they want to get in touch?
So the best way is probably our website. It's craftsmanschoice.com. And then I've also got a book on Amazon, probably the most boring book on Amazon. It's the Minnesota Homeowner's Guide to Exterior Siding. But if you're looking for a siding project, there's a lot of good steps in the process and how to go about that.
Well, that will make sure that we share the links. And then lastly, any parting words of advice for our listeners, whether it's for a homeowner or for a contractor or somebody looking to get into the industry or maybe start their own business, whatever advice you want to give.
Yeah, I think probably the best advice would be for, you know, somebody who's built the business to in our space 2 to 3 million. They're still doing everything. You know, to kind of look at what tasks you can delegate and then find somebody either inside or outside of your organization that you trust and get that off your plate to try to focus on the things that only you can do. And we stumbled along at that at that place for way too long. But once we did finally do that, I mean, that incremental growth just came, and we were able to get past that hurdle. I think there's a lot of businesses stuck in that area where they're doing everything, and it's just so hard because you don't know what that next step is, and just being able to delegate a few of those tasks so you can work on the business instead of, you know, trying to do everything and put out all the fires, give you a better quality of life, and eventually will lead to some economic success.
Yeah, absolutely. What got you here won't get you there. So you got to
Right.
change.
For sure.
So love that. Ben, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. Really
All
appreciate it.
right. Thanks, Casey.